What to do? What's good, YouTube? J Raider TV, Dre Day, Common Conscience. We back again. Dre.
Yes, sir.
What's good, man? Talk to the people.
Hey, man, nothing, man. It's another day. You know what I'm saying? We back, trying to get better, trying to get more consistent, just trying to do what we set out to when we started this thing off. You know what I'm saying? Something real nice and simple. Before you listen any further, though, click subscribe, click like. You don't even have to like it yet. Just like it. Fuck it.
Right.
Keep the stats.
Right, and go all over social media, share it to your friends, family, all their aunties and them, all of that. Because we here for y'all, man. We here. We like to talk current events. We like to talk amongst one another with common sense perspectives on everything. That's what we here for, and we like to have fun doing it. But as Dre said, hit that J Raider TV subscribe, hit that like, hit the notification bell. Find me on J Raider TV at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of that. Dre, where can they find you?
Man, you got to find me on Facebook. You can find me at the podcast. You can find me on FTS Podcast. On Twitter, you can find me at DreDay4536. Shit, nigga, Snapchat DreDay4536. IG DreDay4536. But I do not be on IG. I ain't even gonna flex on it. You know what I'm saying? And then the Twitter podcast at Fuck This Shit Pod on Twitter. You know what I'm saying? Right. That's the credentials.
Right, but we're here now for Common Conscience. You can also find that on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Common Conscience. We here. What's on the slate for us today? We got a couple things to talk about. First up.
Yeah. Man, first up, man. You know, we're going to talk about a little bit, just like a little update. You know what I'm saying? We've been kind of following the Breonna Taylor shit, you know what I'm saying, from the jump. So, when some new shit popped off, you know what I'm saying, I told you I wanted to come, you know what I'm saying, jump it off with that just a little bit or whatever. So, I remember I was telling you, like, the way that it appeared was that during the grand jury proceedings, the grand jury wasn't given all the evidence that they needed to make the correct indictments. But there was a case still pending when we last spoke about this that the result the judge ruled on, and they allowed for the jurors to speak about what happened in the grand jury, which is usually those proceedings are confidential, but there were concerns from so many of the jurors that the judge said that they can speak. They are allowed to reveal their identities if they want to, but I mean, obviously, for, you know what I'm saying, kind of common sense reasons, they probably won't. They'll probably do anonymously. The first juror released his anonymous statement, essentially detailing that they weren't given all the evidence, that they raised questions about more of the evidence and were told that essentially answering those questions wasn't necessary because they had already determined some of the facts of the case. They were only given the option to the only charges that they were given the option to place were the wanton endangerment charges on Brett Hankins.
So from the gate, the judge in the trial was like, "This is the only charge you can consider."
Not the judge, but the prosecutor,
the prosecutor,
the special prosecutor. Yeah, that's the only evidence that was presented to them, you know what I'm saying, and then the only charges that they were given for as options, and they inquired about those charges, and if you kind of look into it a little bit more, you'll find like videos, little stuff is going to come out more and more about that over time, right? Because there's audio from the grand jury that's released, there's the actual grand jurors can make statements about what happened, so there's going to be a ton come out about it, but essentially what we know now, kind of what we all assumed, is that Daniel Cameron, and really as far as I'm concerned, the state of Kentucky, the city of Louisville, like they essentially orchestrated this whole thing where there was never any intention for justice. Like it was all just a show. It wasn't on those people. They felt so bad. I feel like that's why they was fighting about it, because they're like, we don't want people to feel like a jury of your peers kind of situation is what occurred, because that's not what the fuck went down.
So they're out to basically let the American public know that, hey, man, we weren't really given a chance to do y'all justice in this case. And, you know, honestly, we knew from the gate that the only reason they came up with charges was to appease the American public to some degree. Because, you know, this was in the midst of, you know, everything that was happening this spring, this summer, as far as, you know, in the past few years. But you know how heavy it was this spring, this summer.
Yeah,
and
it's been a hot summer.
It's been a hot summer for sure. And, you know, I feel like we all kind of had the perception the correct perception that they came up with these charges just to try to pacify the people to whatever degree they felt they could pacify them. And, frankly, nobody really expected anything to come of it. I mean, this charge wouldn't have yielded any type of real time anyway compared to what happened. But, the fact that jurors are now coming out and saying, hey, man, we were tasked with trying to find justice, but the options we were given were so limited that, what could we have done?
And that's a real good assessment of it. Like, that's essentially what they're saying. I kind of never claim to be a vessel for direct information. Like, if you want to know exactly what they said, like, you could just Google, what did they say? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to go through all of that. That's the gist of it. You know what I'm saying? If you want to prove me wrong, then go look it up. And when you do, you be like, oh, that's what that nigga was saying.
Right. And let me clarify something. On Common Conscience, we don't claim to be the end-all authority of all these things. All we really do is read the news, bro, and Google information. That's what we do. However, on Common Conscience, the whole point of why we're here, our whole, driving force is giving common sense perspectives on real-life events. We try to put it in layman terms. We try to give you what we know and our opinions on it. And with that, we don't claim to be, the all-knowing force. We only know what you guys could know if you just looked it up. We're not in the know. We don't have
fucking right.
We don't have inside scoops about any of this stuff. All of this is readily available information, and we're just trying to talk about what we think should have happened, or what may have gone differently if things had been done differently. And in this case, all that should have been done differently is covered in episode 2.5 of Common Conscience. You can find that on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and YouTube at JRaderTV. But
shameless plug. Shameless.
Another thing you can find on Common Conscience is shameless plugs. Because, me and Dre, we got mad things going on, and you can find us mad places, and we're going to constantly plug where you can find that at. But anyway, one thing we discussed there was, how we felt this case should have been charged, which I believe most people should feel the same way. I mean, I think if you honestly feel opposite of the way we feel about this one, we probably don't even have much of a conversation to have, to be honest with you. But fact of the matter is, this lady lost her life. The only charges that were brought were wanton endangerment charges, and the jurors are now coming out and saying they weren't given another choice on, which is true of any case. I mean, jurors aren't given a choice of what charges to judge on or what charges to argue. The charges are brought by...
No, what charges are able to be presented,
right.
or what charges are able to... Yeah, you're right. I guess you're right. You don't feel that way, but you're right.
You're right. The jury doesn't have any control over what charges are brought forth.
It's just that usually, I guess the difference is that usually we know ahead of time what those potential charges were. You know what I'm saying? Like when somebody steps into a courtroom, we already knew.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like what? Yeah, you're right.
Sure.
You're right.
You already know.
But fuck them still.
And exactly. But I mean, and that's essentially what the jurors are saying. And I'm glad that they're able to come out now and say, don't be mad at us. This wasn't our decision, which, really anybody who pays attention should know that much. The people who decide what charges are brought are the prosecution and the presiding judge. That's it. And the prosecution chose not to charge the right stuff. And the jury, thankfully now, is saying, hey, look, we weren't given an opportunity to really bring justice to this case because the charges weren't proper. They weren't charged with the correct things. Like, what were they to do, And there's an example of the same type of thing. Everybody remembers the Casey Anthony case. And even really the Trayvon Martin case. And I bring these up because they have something in common. The charges weren't appropriate. What I mean by that is the juries in each case were tasked with judging a charge that was inappropriate to the case. In the case of Trayvon Martin, Zimmerman shot him. He admitted to shooting him. He, there was proof of malintent on Zimmerman's part. But, capital murder in Florida has to be proved premeditation. And that wasn't there. So the charge the charge alone, the overcharge of capital murder in Trayvon Martin case is why Zimmerman walked. Could he have been found guilty of something like manslaughter or murder in the second degree? Probably, but they overcharged him with capital, and there wasn't enough evidence to support that charge. So the jury had to go with what, with what the law said about that charge. The same thing goes with Casey Anthony. Do we know she killed her daughter? Yes. Do we know that she was at least involved in felony obstruction of justice and the cover-up following? Yes. But could we prove that she did it on purpose? No. So she walks. That in this case only relates in the way that wanton endangerment is not the appropriate charge.
No.
So when you have juries that are tasked with finding justice with an inappropriate charge, what you're usually left with as a result is inappropriate carriage of justice.
Yeah.
The problem with the system is we put it in the hands of prosecutors and judges to bring forth the right charges, and we're at the mercy of whatever they decide to bring forth.
That shit real. I didn't even, to be honest, like, there's a lot about the Trayvon case that I know about, like, details about it, but that's kind of a small detail within it that is definitely relevant as well. You know what I'm saying? I'll put it to you that way. Like, there's a lot of reasons why Zimmerman got off, but that one can't be excused as not one of those factors.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's something that goes by a hair. Each factor is like, is real relevant. You know what I'm saying? So like that's a good way to put it. You know what I'm saying? Like the grand jury didn't have, it's dope that they, like you said, it's dope that they got the opportunity to speak on that, just so that we know. Now I don't know what can even go on beyond that. They want to get a whole new grand jury and a new special prosecutor as a result of some of these claims. I don't know that that's going to happen in truth. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know how that happens going forward, but what I do think it does in a way is it kind of lets us know why it's so important that these people we select are selected with careful deliberation, because they wield so much individual power. You know what I'm saying? Like Daniel Cameron pretty much unilaterally handled this way.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like there wasn't a lot of people to stop or do anything about in between. One of the reasons why they didn't try, they told the grand jury that they didn't try and bring any charges against the other officers is because they knew they couldn't make them stick because Kenneth Walker shot one of the officers. But they knew that Kenneth Walker didn't actually shoot one of the other officers because the round that was in him didn't match Kenneth Walker's gun. So unless Kenneth Walker had another gun that they never found,
right,
it's more likely that he got hit by one of the other officers who was carelessly shooting into their house.
Right.
So it's just like the way the whole shit was handled was fucked up. But to me, knowing how fucked up that is and how much Daniel Cameron singularly had to do with that makes people engage more in a process that lets Daniel Cameron be the Attorney General. You know what I'm saying? And that's why, you know what I'm saying, to pivot onto something we didn't necessarily talk about ahead of time so we don't have to be on it long or whatever, I think a lot of this is why you're seeing this record early voting turnout. You know what I'm saying? In all these states, you know what I'm saying, Texas, Georgia, everywhere that's opening up, you just seeing like people who are just unwilling to allow their voice to have went unheard. They're like, at least at this point, I'm going to say something. I'm going to show up. I'm going to do my part. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going. Because the way this shit is going, it has to stop here. It has to at least change in some way. That shit is dope to me. I was super, super hyped to see that shit. I'm going tomorrow. I think I was going to go today, but I took care of some other stuff. I think I'm going to go ahead and knock my shit out tomorrow. If you can go vote early, go vote early. Nigga, November 3rd is going to be long ass lines. It's going to be hard to vote in some places. Just find a day off, look it up. It's probably the same fucking polling place with a shorter line and an easier chance to do the same thing. So if you can vote early, vote early. You know what I'm saying? That's all I got on that one.
Yeah, I've never seen a push for early voting like I have this year. Obviously, it's been available for, since as long as I can remember. But, it's not been as heavily promoted, it seems, as this year. And I think if there's anything, not just early voting, but overall surrounding this election. I think if there's anything good that's come from the climate of the country, especially the past year, but really the past not only 4, but the past 10 years now, it's that it's making people vote. If there's a positive thing that comes from it. So, like my guy said, go vote early if you can. At least be in the lines on November 3rd. Even if you kind of have been like me in the past and feel like your vote doesn't count, listen, just go do it. You never know. All right, so next in the shoot, we got Nigeria. Man, there's a lot of things going on in Nigeria. Some protest action. Got some updates today, but go ahead and tell us what's going on. You know a little more about what's happening over there in Nigeria.
So, I mean, in truth, it's not even something that I know a ton about. It's something I have been seeing kind of pop up. And, I mean, shit, on some American shit, I was like, damn, that's crazy that something's going on the other side of the country, or on the other side of the planet. I'm not going to pay much attention to that. And I just kind of went on about my own life. But when I seen it kept coming up, I was like, okay, I know it's something or whatever. And then I look into it more or whatever. And the hashtag they talking about is NSARS. And SARS is it's Special Armed Robbery Squad. And it's like this group of vigilante police that was established specifically to end like an increase in armed robberies that had been occurring. But they gave these police like free license to do anything they wanted outside of the parameters of like typical, law enforcement laws, right? Or rules, or however you want to put it.
Right.
And like it went pretty
Who
much
gave them this permission?
The government. The government. You know what I'm saying? Like the government, like that was like it's like
said the government.
The government. Yeah, but the government gave them that. They the police, with local leadership, like this is like an everyone agrees effort kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? I don't know who makes the final call on that. I'm not gonna pretend like I do. But
yeah.
It's the point is that this is completely legal. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no like underbelly going on that like they didn't know what this was going to end up being, or maybe they didn't think about it, but whatever. So they tell them you do whatever you want as long as you can stop the armed robberies from occurring. And essentially over time, what this police force turns into is like the armed robbers that they were supposed to be protecting the citizens against. They are reported with obviously like massive police brutality, like instances of torture, state sanctioned executions, like wilding the fuck out, like on some real America type shit, but in their own with their own little twist on it, right? And like in their profiling practices, so they saying that like it's like weird. It's like if you young and you have a lot, like you drive a nice car or like you dress real nice. There's even one they're saying like just having an iPhone will make them consider you suspicious, and they might pull you over and fuck with you, you know what I'm saying, and just see what you got, take your shit, take your car and leave with it. Like they just a complete vigilante squad that does whatever they want, more or less. And the protests have just
apparently these have been going on. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's it, bro. The protests.
So apparently this has been going on since. It's been going on since October 8th, it appears. And the update came out today, the 22nd. So 2 weeks later to the button. 56 people have died since Nigeria's End SARS protest began. 36 of them killed across the country on Tuesday alone. So obviously protests are getting violent. Looks like they've deployed the military. And all roads leading to the prison are blocked. So, riots happening in prisons, people ending up dying. So it doesn't appear that these protests are, obviously falling on happy shoulders. So, what's going to happen from here? Like, what can the people of Nigeria expect as far as a solution or at least a slowdown of the violence?
I have no
what are they doing to... What are they doing besides protests? Because it seems that peaceful protests there are just ending in violence.
I mean, it's more of the same. It's kind of like, it's like especially when they're protesting a group that's known for like torturing and killing citizens, and then like as a result, it's literally the same thing that happens here in America, right? So it's like we protest police brutality, and the police are like, let's go out and brutalize the protesters. You know what I'm saying? Like, and because their version of it, I mean, honestly, like it just kind of, this is the shit where this is the American thing, right? Where they're like, yeah, we're fucking you, but if you were somewhere else, they will be fucking you harder than this. So like, just shut up and take it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a little bit worse there than it is here. You know what I'm saying? As far as like how bad it gets, but it's the same pattern, the same method. They already disbanded SARS. The Nigerian government was like, fuck SARS, we're gonna disband it. But all they did was change the name. And as I'm looking into it, they've done this multiple times with this same squad. And they even hired back like multiple members of the new squad are the same people from the old squad. So it's literally just the whole new shit with a new name. I think it's like the special tactical weapons unit or some shit like that. Like I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's something like that. What it amounts to, what can they do? What does it mean for us here? I don't even really have a lot of those answers. I think it's important that there's some amount of awareness on it as far as just kind of the culture of human rights abuse around the world, like globally, impacts all of us. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know, man. It's just wild.
Yeah, so in a televised address today, which I guess in Nigeria would have been, for us, would have been yesterday afternoon sometime, because it's Thursday evening is what they called it. Nigeria's president, his name is Muhammadu Buhari, urged protesters to take advantage of the reforms the government was implementing. And then he was quoted as saying he wants the youth to discontinue the street protests and constructively engage government in finding solutions. Your voice has been heard loud and clear, and we are responding. So the government has promised that they, hear the protests and are responding, and that's what the protesters want, obviously. However, if it's anything like America, they're probably just sitting in wait to see what action comes of this. But it looks like what they're doing right now, all they've chosen to do is just kind of rebrand that organization and not really disband it, but just rebrand it to something else. And in the meantime, lash out against the protesters, which ultimately doesn't seem to be too far off of what other nations have done, aka.
Really, yeah, I was gonna say the last thing I could really say concerning all of that is just that I can't really speak to exactly how they feel in Nigeria. What it appears from what I've seen is that their sentiment is very similar to ours here, which is that you want us to stop doing our thing. You want us to get out of the streets with a promise that you're going to do something that you were supposed to be doing all along, as though you can't do it while we're out.
Right.
And that'll fall.
Mm-hmm. And I think you touched on a big point. Like these are basic human liberties we're asking for. This is something that should have been happening. We got to clear the streets for you to do it. That's wild.
Like, no, how about you do it and then we'll clear the streets?
Yeah. Right, exactly. And I think that's the point of protesting. Like, do it and we'll leave. Do it consistently. Promise to do it forever and we'll leave. So my parting question with this is, well, first I'll make a point. I think it's great to see, not only in Nigeria, but from what we've seen here in America, it's great to see that people are fed up with injustice. It's fantastic. These aren't ideal circumstances. They're not ideal scenarios. Obviously, we don't want our country to be in a condition of turmoil at any time. But what's great about seeing it is either we live in a time where nobody can get away with anything anymore, which is what I believe. Everybody's got a video camera in their hands now, and a form of breaking news media in their hands. So the capability of someone, especially a government, to get away with anything nowadays is none. It's minimal, if
I
it
agree
exists
with
at
that.
all. Like you can't get
I
away with
completely agree
anything.
with that thought process,
So that's a
bro. Because
that's
that's
a
what puts those two things together. That Breonna Taylor shit, that was them doing things the old way because they used to could get away with it. You know what I'm saying? Not to interrupt you, but
right.
just kind of put your point on a different thing. Like it really does apply.
Yeah. Well, think about Ahmaud Arbery. Ahmaud Arbery was killed in, I believe it was February, might have been March. We didn't hear about it until
Yeah, it
July.
was a while after. I don't
June or
remember the
July.
specifics, but it was months.
Yeah. It was a couple of months, and the only reason we heard, and the only reason that there were charges brought, is because a video came out. So what's happening is we're starting to uncover age-old, systematic injustice tendencies in real time with the use of high-definition video and social media. What's happened unintentionally is the people now have the power of exposure. They weren't counting on all this to be available to the American people. You know, these are not new issues. Government oppression, systemic injustice, these are not new problems. The only reason that the climate of the country has changed into such a state of turmoil is because now more people know about it. What's wild is a lot of the people who are defending the injustice, deliberately or indeliberately, shouldn't have any reason to defend it. It's right. It's in HD color video.
You call them more people?
And
you call them more people? Like, is that like MOOR or like MORE? I call them white people. I call them white people. You said because more people found out about it. I think you meant white people found out about it.
Right. Well, and that's why I transitioned into. They still find a way to deny that it happens.
Yeah, there's that,
which is crazy to me. And yeah, and those are the people that are denying that it happens still in the face of all this evidence. But what's great about the time that we live in is because all of this is, you know, even the people like yourself, let's talk about just America for a second. Even Black America, not even just Black America, but minority America across the board. Even though minority America deals with oppression directly themselves, even they don't have a true sense of the entire scope of how it happens to everyone. Even though you know that growing up in Oklahoma, you're going to deal with X degree of this oppression, of this racism, of this injustice climate. You don't know that it's actually just as bad over here and just as bad up there and just as bad down here because you don't live there. You don't know about it directly. What government and media has been able to do since the beginning of time is suppress your knowledge of those things because they just simply don't tell you about it. What's happening now is you see everybody's dealing with the same stuff. That's why it's such a huge issue now nationwide, because we can be sitting here in Lawton, Oklahoma, somebody shot in the back 7 times in Minneapolis, and we know about it 30 seconds later. Yeah. That's never been a capability of ours.
You saying like it doesn't? You can only know what you know. You know what you know. You know what I'm saying? Like even as a black man, like I really only prior to like kind of like the universal mentality that social media gave us, like I can only give you the perspective of what it's like to be a black man where I'm from. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't even tell you what it's like to be a black man where someone else lives in Hawaii. You know what I'm saying? In New York. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't really know. Like there's different nuances to just like I think that's a point worth kind of expanding upon and kind of like detailing out that like it's not so much to say that like any individual can't tell you all about their struggle. It's just to say that like any individual can really only know their struggle. You know what I'm saying? So like in order to know another person's struggle, you have to be willing to hear that out. You have to be willing to have them say that to you. And when it's in video, it's a little bit harder to ignore what's being put in front of you because it's clearly not opinion. Like a video is never a non-altered video in its full unedited form is never an opinion. It is what it is. Right. It is what's in front of you, and I think that's That's a solid thing to say. You know what I'm saying? And that's that same link. You know what I'm saying? There's this doom and gloom behind social media because it does have all these negative things. We've talked about all those things before, but it does have that bright side of making, you know what I'm saying, Americans, and culturally speaking, Americans have been very uneducated about what occurs globally. You know what I'm saying, as far as human rights abuses and things. That's made those things a little bit less pervasive. You know what I'm saying, where now things that are going on in Nigeria resonate here. You know what I'm saying, in a way that if we can make our leadership be a little bit more representative of what we feel as a society, hopefully would lend itself to have America be a leader kind of in what it looks like to bend to the will of the citizens that reside there without like any like real contention, the way it should be. You know what I'm saying? Like we have the same issues here that they have in Nigeria. I would like to one day say that like Nigeria looked at how America handled our issue with that same thing and followed that blueprint. You know what I'm saying? Like we have an opportunity to do that now. Whether we'll seize that or not, who the fuck knows? But the opportunity's there.
Well, we're in a day and age now. Yeah, the opportunity's there, and we live in a day and age now where, we have the ability to see these issues in such a full scope globally, not just nationwide, but globally, to where we know that we're not tripping. Like this isn't just happening to us, and we're not just overreacting. This is everywhere, and because of the evidence, and there's a point I want to kind of revert back to as far as video evidence goes. Like video evidence is the most irrefutable thing. Even photographs, you have to kind of infer, you have to interpret what could have happened. Obviously, there's the power of editing is something we could touch on later. The power of editing is something that has been able to fool a lot of people into believing a lot of things that aren't real. Crazy. But there's also what happened before the record, what happened after the record that are always going to be questions. But the things that you cannot question on an undoctored video, as you said, are what happened between the record and the end record. Like those are irrefutable facts and the most powerful form of evidence we've ever dealt with. And one of the most prominent examples of this that I can think of is the Abraham Zapruder film of the JFK assassination. And it's a prime example of what it's the turning point between before this happened, the powers that be were able to convince us of whatever. And they were counting on that ability. If you believe that, the government was involved in this plot to kill the president or whatever. However, there is a question there as far as what would have been fed us as truth if this wasn't there.
They don't know how you feel about JFK, bro.
We'll talk about that later. But the point is valid to today. Like, if the video wasn't rolling, what would they have been able to tell us happened? And go to the Ahmaud Arbery incident. It took them over 2 months to charge anybody. And if you read up on the actual credible media outlets' accounts of his homicide, the police responded to this incident and went to Ahmaud Arbery's mother and told him that he was caught burglaring a home and was shot in self-defense. And they had planned on rolling with that narrative until the video came out. So the question, and that's just one example, but the question has to arise at some point is how long will we allow the government to our government, Nigeria's, whoever's government is doing the same, how long are we going to allow them to control the direction of the narrative? Not just the narrative itself, but where are we going as a result of it? Now we've got all this irrefutable evidence in front of us. They're still trying to deny that it's happening in the face of it. But, imagine where we'd be without this capability. Not only the capability to capture videos at our fingertips, but the capability to broadcast these injustices as they happen. Obviously, as you said, there are negatives that come along with it, but there are negatives that come along with everything. the point I'm making with all of this is what we're seeing from Nigeria is the refusal to allow this control to continue.
Oh, shit.
And unfortunately, the response to the protests has been violent. Granted, we don't know all the details. We don't know whether protesters have been violent. However, we're only able to react to what we know. And what we know is there's some injustice going down. There are people protesting against it. Those people are being resisted to the point of violence. People are dying now. And the president is on the hot seat to do something about it. And all he's really said is leave the streets and go home and we'll figure it out.
Sound familiar? Sound familiar? And I know we've had a lot of very last points on this, and I swear this is really my very last one. As a citizen of any country, to let the government convince you that it is your job to police what happens within protest, as though protest is not one of the vehicles you have as a citizen for change, is the stupidest shit I've ever heard in my fucking life. Do you mean to tell me that you out here telling people that they shouldn't protest what they don't believe in because the government doesn't like the way they doing it? Like, one day you might not have something you so passionate about that you might not want to protest about it, and then you want motherfuckers like you want to be a part of that vicious ass dumbass cycle. Like, bro, if you don't agree with something, you should protest. You know what I'm saying? If you feel like you should be able to walk around this motherfucker and infect people with COVID-19 because you don't want to wear a mask, then go and protest that shit somewhere that you allowed to be. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, because the difference is that when they do that shit, they get their guns and go inside the Capitol somewhere you're not allowed to have guns. And then, you know what I'm saying? Like, they want to press all these extra rules. You know what I'm saying? But, like, real shit, like, if you want to protest something, I'm going to call you a dumb fuck. Or if you think it's dumb that people are protesting, you call them dumb all you want. But to denounce the fact that they're out there, you dumb. You the dummy.
Yeah.
Because you the one who gonna need that. That's how we got here.
Yeah.
To this wonderful country.
Yeah, all good points, man. Obviously, my prayers are with people in Nigeria. Hopefully they find a resolution soon.
Absolutely.
Positive vibes, thoughts going out to them for sure. Nobody likes to see a country in unrest, but to keep it lighthearted, welcome to the party. You know what I mean? Like, we've been here for a minute. I'm kidding. Nigeria been to the party longer than we have, but you know what I mean. Anyway, so let's move right into a point you touched on a second ago, man. COVID is not going to the crib. Like, we waiting on COVID to pack up and head to the crib, and it's just not, man. For the past few weeks, NFL has seen its fair share of the COVID infiltration. And this isn't going to be a sports topic, but, you bring it up to ask the question, did America spawn properly? Which is a rhetorical question, obviously. And did we try to get back to life as we know it too quickly and too irresponsibly? And what do you feel about the new wave, man? The new wave is here. Oklahoma, I live in Oklahoma. You're down in Texas, but you're from Oklahoma. It's still home. And Oklahoma's having record cases and record hospitalizations. And we are officially in month 8. So what happens from here?
First of all, I would like to take this moment to kind of transcend my inner Dr. Fauci. I don't know if you watched the Dr. Fauci interview, but Dr. Fauci did a 60 Minutes interview, and they asked him, was he surprised that Donald Trump got coronavirus? And he swiftly said, absolutely not. So if Oklahoma
I missed that.
is Donald Trump, and me and my all-knowing.
Are you surprised that Oklahoma got coronavirus?
Absolutely not.
Is it because we never actually closed or implemented any type of safety precautions at all? Oklahoma's government was the first and I think still the only governor was the first and I think the only governor to contract.
He led the way. He led the way. He really is an innovator in that way.
Good job, man. Way to be
Golf
a
clap
leader,
for
my
Governor
dude.
Stitt.
Yeah.
All
Right. And he still got up there with COVID,
bro,
talking about
that's
it.
what Trump did. That's the playbook. They're like, if you get it, just act like it's not that bad. That way other people will get it and die. Right. So I've actually got a few things on that. I think that the easiest way to do this without actually talking about sports is to use sports as an analogy. See, the NFL is kind of an analogy for what America did do. America was like, we want to be open. And they were like, well, the scientists stopped and they were like, well, if you take these, and America's like, whoa, we want to be open. And they were like, yeah, we're trying to tell you if you just do these things, then you can open. And then they're like, no, we want to open today or right now. So in that whole process where the whole America was pretty much not really paying attention to what they were saying we should do to be able to live the lives that we want to live, coronavirus was just sitting up there, you know what I'm saying, gearing up, getting ready for that second wave, that the same people who told us what to do to not have all these people die in the first place were like, and by the way, when the winter months come around, in the fall and winter, they said this in February, March. They said it's going to get bad now, and then we can stop it if we do a lockdown and we wear masks and all this. But in the fall and winter, in concert with flu season, there will be another wave likely. And let me just, I know I'm going a lot of places with this, but let me take you off your grandma's theories about how you get sick. The reason why you're more likely to get sick in the winter months is not because the cold makes you sick. The reason you're more likely to get sick in the winter months is actually because of the habits of human beings when it gets cold. You are more likely to be in an indoors confined area with other people for a prolonged amount of time as the weather gets colder. Did you know that when it is cold outside, you don't want to stand out there, and neither do any of the other people? So when you go do things, there's more people there, and the flu is seasonal, and you get to sneeze, you get all this airborne bullshit going on. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not because of the actual cold. So this second wave was predicted, and we did the NFL thing. To go back to my original point, we were just like, we'll do whatever, and then whatever will happen. And as a result, I think as of taping of this podcast, we're probably somewhere around 220,000 people who have died. Like, and like, just to quickly stop on that, because it's not just a number. Like, those are children. Children have died. Unlike what they say, children have died. Those are young people who have died. Those are people with and without pre-existing conditions who have died. They are people's family members. They are people's providers. Some of those people were the sole breadwinner in a home that had no life insurance. Like, there's a ripple effect.
But Dre, that's less than 1% of the population of the country.
Fuck 'em right.
That's less than 1%. But Dre, what do you mean? Should we even care? That's less than 1% of our country's population. Far less.
Exactly. Right. You know what I'm saying? So that's just.
That was my that was my anti-mask conscience voice. But Dre, there's less than 1% of the population. We should just be okay with those people dying,
it's so hot
shouldn't
in
we?
This mask.
I can't breathe. I can only breathe 50% of the time in this mask.
I mean, so essentially that's it. Without going too much deeper than that, that's it. The comparison was the NBA versus the NFL, because the NBA, on the other hand, from the jump, the first player who got it, they shut the whole fucking thing down. They were like, whoa, someone here has it, let's shut the whole shit down and figure it out. Not because the shutdown was the solution, but because the coronavirus was a new thing with no real data already compiled. So you need time to learn this thing. How does it spread? Where does it spread? Who's susceptible? How do we stop it? How do we mitigate it? None of these questions had answers. So the NBA said, let's just shut this shit down until we figure out some shit about it.
And basketball is just not that important.
Listen, and basketball is not that important. Even though it's $1 million, multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar industry when you put together all the different interests that thrive within it, right? They shut down. They figure it all out. They figure out a way to get what they want safely. The NBA, on the other hand, so in comparison, you take the NBA and they do everything that they supposed to do. They take the time, they research what they need to do to get things open safely, and as a result, they get the full benefit of finishing out the playoffs. They set up a schedule. No players got sick, no staff got sick, no games got missed, nothing got postponed. Every time an NBA game was supposed to come on, with the exception of protests for social justice, which, even though there's a percentage of people who will say that that's a loss on the NBA side, it's not. It's only a loss if you believe in what happens politically and less in what happens numerically. They're on the more favorable side that's going to side with the side of right as time goes on. The NBA is going to get mad money from taking this L right now.
Right.
Believe that. But anyway, they get to do their whole thing out because they did it the right way. They did it the right way, so they got to finish their whole thing. And then in comparison, you get the NFL, which I get NFL notifications on my phone still. And once a week, that those notifications are a team with another COVID positive player. Now you get the Oakland Raiders, who have a COVID positive offensive lineman. They're under investigation because the NFL thinks that all of the offensive linemen were hanging out with each other outside of there without their masks, which is the reason why they probably all have it, or most of them have it. It's going to be another post. They already changed the primetime slot. You know what I'm saying? Because they're trying to make sure, and it's just, that's America right now. Constantly making adjustments because we didn't handle the situation correctly from the beginning, and we keep thinking it's just going to magically disappear.
Right, and don't get it misunderstood. America is leading the board in cases and deaths, and it's not close.
No.
You know, the United States of America is a big country, area-wise, and subsequently, not coincidentally, but because of that, has a lot of people. There's a lot of people who live here. The nation isn't consistently densely populated across the board, though. Most of Americans live Midwest and East. Most of them. And you would assume that because of that, most of the cases would be Midwest and East. And obviously most of them are. However, it's not just in the most densely populated areas that all these cases are. What we've seen is because of the responsible tendencies of one political affiliation compared to the irresponsible tendencies of the other, what you're seeing is, for the most part, the people who are acting irresponsibly because they think this is a hoax or it's not that serious, or, I'm not going to wear a mask because I don't want anyone to control me, or it's not going to do anything anyway. These types of people who are overpopulating red states, let's just call it what it is, are the ones who are suffering from the more prominent, more frequent COVID cases. And obviously, coronavirus doesn't respond to one's political affiliation. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is whatever media outlets you are consuming on a regular basis, combined with how you feel about politics in general or politicians, shapes your behavior. And your behavior is what's getting people sick. Cut and dried, that's pretty much what's happening. And I do have evidence in the form of a coronavirus case heat map and the 2016 presidential election map, and the consistencies. Dre's, you've seen it before. Yeah. The consistencies between which states are red and which states have the highest number of COVID cases is uncanny. It is identical. And that's a problem. And it's not necessarily that because I believe in a certain politician's political views that I have coronavirus. Like, it's not that simple. What it is because of the behaviors instilled in us based off of what we think is true and what we think is not, people are getting sick and people are dying. And unfortunately, some of those views and some of those behaviors are, I don't believe in this, so I'm not going to do what's necessary to keep
Straight
people
up.
safe, people are getting sicker. And what's happened as a country is, unfortunately, I don't know if it's the majority, but a large percentage of our country is behaving irresponsibly because of the leadership that it chooses to follow. And unfortunately, the leadership that it chooses to follow is in the White House. So, and it's not a coincidence that that same leadership also contracted this virus. You might think it's a coincidence, but it's not. Our fearless leader, our Governor Stitt, is also affiliated with that same ideology.
Goofy ass nigga.
That it's not that serious. Right, exactly. So don't misunderstand what's happening. There is an irresponsible response to this thing across the board in this country. And if there is a shining light as far as an organization that did it properly, it is the National Basketball Association. Not only did the very first case publicly identified in the country belong to an NBA player in Oklahoma City.
He wasn't the first case. He was just the case that set shit
that
down.
Shut everything down.
Yeah. He was the first case that was taken seriously.
Right. So the response immediately was, we're not playing this game. This game is over. Later on that night or the next day, either one, they were like, we're done with games until further notice. That same night, the NCAA was like, no tournament. We're not doing that. Everybody followed suit. And it was because they as organizations had the power to make a decision to respond in whatever way they felt they should.
2024.
The difference, right? Let's vote for Adam Silver. Let's do it. Because what you're seeing here, all the American government is an organization. Don't get it misunderstood. It's a business organization. That's a different conversation. So, organizationally, the differences are, obviously we're on different scales, but the NBA was like, we're done. Everyone who looked like them, NCAA, WNBA, if it was around, pretty sure the NHL did something. MLB didn't even start until June.
The NHL's, I think the NHL had a bubble too, and I think they got to finish their whole shit out too. Yeah.
And that was my next point. Not only did that happen, not only did they do what Dre mentioned a second ago, where they took a second and sat back for a minute, evaluated and assessed the situation.
Just let the science
properly.
catch up.
But then they came up with But then they put a plan in place to still be able to provide something for its consumers while doing it safely. And did you know that not one NBA player got coronavirus after that? And what I mean is they came up with the idea that we're essentially going to quarantine. First, we're going to allow these players, coaches, owners, GMs, staff members the option to quarantine themselves for the rest of the season. So there was free will involved. They weren't like, if you want to work here, you got to come to the bubble. They were like, do you want to play or not?
And basketball has guaranteed contracts. Which everybody was, and that's an important thing to factor in. So they allow these brothers, they still get paid. Right. They're like, if you don't want to come, it's cool. Your check will be there.
Right. Right. They were saying, you can come or not. We're still going to pay you if you don't want to. And there were several players who opted out of the bubble. A lot of them. But they gave you the option to do so, while, if you chose to do so, allowing you a safe, quarantined, peaceful environment for you to come and not have to worry about contracting this. While you were there, doing your job, playing the game, making your money, having the opportunity to compete for a championship, which is the only reason a lot of these guys even do this, providing the American people an escape from the everyday stress of what's happening in the country. All that stuff goes into, this is a good thing that's happening. All while they're doing that, they are punishing people who don't follow the rules. Now, you had a few players leave the bubble to do XYZ, whatever. Those players were fined, and we're talking about Lou Williams and his chicken wings.
And Daniel House.
Right.
Smashing
Goofballs,
on the
man.
COVID tester in the bubble.
Right. Smashed on the
I mean,
tester,
that's kind
bro.
of legendary, but my man's out of
Anyway, look
wife, so
at
we can't condone it.
it's right. It's legendary from the standpoint that there were very little F's given. However, you're right. We definitely don't condone that because of the extramarital activity. We also don't condone that because if there's anybody who got COVID in the bubble, it's the one that be testing everybody first.
Bruh. So if somebody got it, she's definitely been
That's
exposed.
right.
Especially the way she clearly tested the players. But anyway.
Right. Yeah. Right. She testing them like
Yeah.
that. Anyway,
I thought you're supposed to put it
so
in your nose.
this was an
Not your,
organization.
yeah.
Right. Right. Somebody got swabbed. Anyways, so this was an organization that did everything properly from the jump. What you're seeing across the way in the NFL is, I don't know if there's irresponsible practices happening. I don't know. There's not a bubble being created. The NFL has come out and said the bubble doesn't make sense for them. But I don't know. I think that it kind of mirrors America's general response that maybe things were done too swiftly. Maybe you've just mentioned that we knew a second wave was coming. So, and we knew when it was coming. We knew that when fall got here and things got a little cooler that it was going to spike, and that's what's happening. And I don't know, should we have waited to open the NFL? Probably. I mean, if anybody got enough money to survive without one season, it's the NFL. So maybe that's
It's like people don't be understanding how much a billion is in comparison to a million. And I realized that a long time ago when people will know that like Jerry Jones is worth several $billions. Like Jerry Jones could pay his player salaries out of his pocket. You know what I'm saying? Like not out of the profit of the Dallas Cowboys, but he was like, dang, I gotta float these niggas for a year. Like it would do that and it would change the point at the end of the amount of billions of dollars he's worth. You know what I'm saying? Like he wouldn't even be worth a whole billion less. You know? Like,
right. Not even.
You know
yeah, not
like,
even. I mean, because what's 1 year's salary for the entire 53 players?
Whatever the salary cap is.
I mean, it may not even. It may not even be $500 million.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? So if you Jerry Jones and you worth $7.6 billion and you got to pay the whole salary for a year, you like, oh dang, I'm only worth $7.1 billion now. You know what I'm saying? Like,
especially since we're not even talking about his personal net worth. The Dallas Cowboys got enough to float that. That doesn't even come out of his pocket. Just because he can afford it doesn't mean that comes from him.
And that's the reality of the NFL, all these organizations, America, the way it's run. We get put at the expense of people who feel like we are utilized in order to just facilitate profit for them. You know, and that's the whole, as a server, bro, when you're talking about going back, I'll tell you that it really made me look at what I do differently because there's no true value in what I do day to day. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, people enjoy going out to eat. When you provide someone good service, it does make them feel good. And making people feel good is not of zero value. You know what I'm saying? But what I do is not essential to, like, the functionality of society. And when the options are call everyone who wants to stay home safely with their family lazy, because they don't have the privilege to work in a profession where that's more easily done, or force these people back so that they can bring me my state. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like so many people were willing to like put other people back into harm's way, back into what was at that point still really unknown. You know, now in October, November, I feel slightly more comfortable working in that environment because, you know, I keep my mask on. I do keep my distance from other people. I kind of am cognizant of the constant quote unquote danger that you're in by working in public spaces like that. But originally, we didn't even know how bad that would be or what that would look like, you know, so I wasn't comfortable in those settings. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was very uncomfortable. I was very nerve-wracked as to whether or not I was unnecessarily exposing myself to something that may impact me years down the line. Like maybe I'm fine now, but later on, you know what I'm saying, I developed some underlying condition as a result of something I contracted back when COVID was going on. Like it was just so much uncertainty, and it just made me view the whole thing differently, bro.
Right. So, how much of America's, swift action to reopen was a result of, public protest, public unrest? Because you're talking about on a smaller scale, you're talking about small businesses that definitely suffered. You're talking about regular people who didn't have much put away in savings that were taken from their jobs. And when you have those things happening, you have people who start to speak out against the closures. How am I supposed to survive? Oh, okay, thanks for this $1,200 check that came 6 weeks later, and I only get one of those. Okay, this unemployment is cool, but it ain't gonna last forever. It's then you got small businesses like, man, I can't survive with no customers. How many small businesses nationwide went under?
It's a lot. I don't have the number in front of me, but it is a lot. Like I want to say it's around 100,000. I want to say the number is 100,000 small businesses are closed, so it's around that. But just don't quote me on it.
Yeah. So how do you, at the end of the day, how do you fault the government completely for its irresponsible, swift response?
Because of the lack of a plan.
Are they supposed to wash their hands of everybody and say sorry about you?
To me, it's because of the lack of a plan. It is a lot of the uncertainty comes from as a small business. So imagine you own a small business, right? You run a small business and COVID is ravaging, and you don't know what's going to happen from today to next week to next month to next year. Like what does America look like? And you're operating at a loss. But if you knew right now that this is going to last for 6 to 8 months, this exact number of relief will come at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like, can you then come to your landlord with more leverage to say, I have 4 months of my rent right now. You know what I'm saying? This is expected to last at maximum 8 months. Are you more confident in my ability to restart my former productivity after all this is lifted? Or are you more confident in your ability to release this space to someone else to start something in the middle of a pandemic when most operations are closed? When you even the playing field, because none of us can really do anything. So if you kick me out, there's no one to replace me because they're not allowed to do their thing either. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that to me is the value that a federal plan gives the nation in an instance like that. Even small businesses to be able to say, even landlords to be able to make that decision as to can they afford that? Even for them to have made the decision that they were going to mandate that banks freeze all, you know what I'm saying, loans, blah, 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 whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, those are kind of some of the things that having a more unified strategy would have allowed for people to make those decisions with information. Now it's just like, I can't answer your question as to what would have been better or how it could have been different because I don't even know what a.
All right, so on tonight's debates that's actually going down right now, that we're going to do a recap for tomorrow. We'll touch on that in a second. The second presidential debate that's going down tonight. How much do you expect, a question to come up about, where do we go from here as far as COVID response? What I kind of feel like may happen, that I hope doesn't happen, is that somebody's going to say, well, if you get me elected, then I'll do X, Y, Z. And unfortunately, I think we're only a couple of weeks away from the election now, so that probably will be the answer. But, I don't feel like there's been enough time this year where a plan should have already been implemented on some level. And I don't know that I have confidence in either side to orchestrate or execute a plan quote unquote, if he's elected. So, I mean, do you expect that to come up and that to be the answer in tonight's debates?
I guess the thing that sucks about it is that when you look at it from that perspective, and not even it sucks, bro. Like, I mean, it just kind of is the nature of what it is. Is that for the incumbent, the current president, he is the one who's, if elected, I will kind of falls more death because it's like you are the president. And in the case of Biden, it's like really what else can Biden say other than if elected, I would do X, Y, Z. If I was in his shoes, I would have done X, Y, Z. I think that I don't know if you've seen it. If you haven't, you should definitely watch it. You know what I'm saying? Like you, everybody else, is that Obama had a speech in Philadelphia yesterday, I think. And one of the things that he said that really resonated with me is that he didn't necessarily have hope that Trump was going to carry on his legacy and like advance his policies, but he did hope that he would at least take the job seriously.
Right.
And that's kind of what I feel like you failed to see on Trump's behalf. That's most glaring that you'll see the most. And I actually think that it'll be more revealing to Trump to not be able to interrupt and to not be able to be interrupted, because it will just be kind of more evidence that when asked a specific question about what would you do about, what have you done about any of those things, he never has an answer.
Right. Ever.
There's never we did X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. He'll say, I had the greatest economy that this country has ever seen. But it's like you inherited an economy that was already succeeding. Like they hadn't seen a downward trend in an Obama quarter in years. You know what I'm saying? And so it's not the same as when Obama gets Bush's economy and turns it to a successful economy for you to say, look what I did with this thing that was already running smoothly. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I think you'll see a lot of that. What I hope though, and this is, I wish that this was going to be posted in time for me to get a bet off with somebody. Because the point that I'm waiting for in the moment is when you hear Donald Trump audibly yell from Joe Biden's mic because he wants to talk while he's being muted, and I'm hoping this is my moment, because Donald Trump gives you all the light old people cuss words, the asses and the dams and shit, but he hasn't really dropped a solid F-bomb on us. And what I'm waiting for is to hear, I'm the fucking president of this country.
You know, it's wild because I was thinking that same thing. You know, the first debate was such a disaster. And, you know, you mentioned a second ago that he doesn't have an answer for that particular question. He doesn't have an answer for anything, really, ever. And what we saw with the first debate is constant defense. Even when he was talking, he was playing defense. And it was like, the only reason, we've all been in an argument with a woman before, in a toxic relationship before, where all of your arguments are talking over one another, because you know if you let this person speak, she's probably going to get off a point, or he's probably going to get off a point that is going to cripple your position. So what you decide to do, and I don't do this, but I was in a relationship with somebody who did.
So I would never. First of all, I would like to side note that I would never.
And the point is that they're trying to make, the point that they're trying to make is, I'm going to just wear you down by not letting you talk, because I know that my case is so flimsy that if I let you speak, you're probably going to unravel it. And if you unravel it, I'm definitely going to lose. And to me, all it spoke was panic. They know they're probably going to lose anyway. And it's still enough of a coin flip at this point that if he lets Biden speak, enough of a case is going to be made against him logically that the people who are on the fence are going to have to go with Biden. So what he's going to do is just not let him speak. So the good thing that's happening tonight is, like you mentioned a second ago, the microphones are muted. But I have thought about before that he's still going to try to do that. And it's gonna be extra funny to hear his faint echo of a voice from the other side of the stage.
And
Biden's
listen,
just gonna
and
be
even
like,
worse if you can't hear him at all. Even worse if you can't hear him at all, you just get those exaggerated Trumpy ass facial expressions where he's
Right.
just posturing like a fucking bird. Just I hate that motherfucker.
Exactly. And I just hope, that tonight's debate is the second of 3, and I hope that we see enough.
No, I don't think we're gonna get a third. Are we gonna get a third?
I don't know.
I think this was supposed to be the third, and they canceled. No, they canceled the second one so that they could do that dueling town hall thing where Trump didn't disavow QAnon, which I absolutely took this as a moment to talk about Trump and QAnon. If you believe in QAnon conspiracies and you are still on my friends list, please exit the building. I think you're retarded. I'm sorry. That's
You're not supposed to say that word.
I'm aware. I'm trying to get better. Because it's not right to call y'all retarded because the kids who y'all will call retarded just suffer from various mental disabilities and deserve their respect, and they're smarter than you.
And y'all might actually be retarded.
Even if you think that's what being retarded is, you are dumber than that.
Right.
So I will not disrespect those children or adults who have these various impairments. I guess impairment almost sounds worse. Like they're like less than. Like they just whatever.
Yeah.
It is what it is. If you believe that the Democratic Party is secretly a satanic cult running a pedophile ring out of a pizza shop, my nigga, like,
don't get me started.
Literally, we have nothing to talk about.
Don't get me started, bro.
There's nothing for us to speak to each other about.
And that's classic defense in itself. Like, I know that if this was a fair fight, we would be getting smoked. So what I'm going to do is just claim and get everyone I know convinced that you are Lucifer's grandchildren so that they have to oppose you by default.
Diametrically opposed to any pedophilia. She said, "Do you know about QAnon?" He said, "I don't know anything about QAnon." She said, "But I just told you." She told him the whole thing, what it was, and he said, "You know," and then he says, "I don't know anything about QAnon, but I do know that they're very against pedophilia." He does that thing where he like pushes her away with his hands, you know what I'm talking about? He's like, "But I do know that they're very against pedophilia."
Golly. Anyway, I hope that after tonight's debate, the American people can see that we had enough of this. 4 years is plenty.
Major facts.
And more than plenty, and it's time to move on from that. Hopefully, enough of his former supporters have seen that what they thought was going to happen didn't. Enough of his former supporters have seen that his leadership is not what the country needs. And hopefully we move in a different direction. Tonight is one of the final steps toward convincing everyone that we should. And I hope it goes smoothly enough that people can make the right decision. Other than that, man, I think we're just kind of at the mercy of what the polls decide after we put our opinion on some paper.
Big facts.
Common Conscience. We are out of here. Dre Day 4536 everywhere. J Raider TV everywhere. Follow Common Conscience Podcast on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to J Raider TV. Notification bell. Dre, where can they find your podcast?
Man, you can find that thing at f.t.s. That's Fuck This Shit. That's the Fuck This Shit podcast. You can find that shit on anywhere. Type that shit into your search bar. Subscribe to that shit. Get ready, man. I got a whole little launch plan for season 2. I've been bullshitting on some bonus episodes. I owe everybody 2 more. I swear I'm going to get those motherfuckers to you. It's a couple of reasons why you haven't got them yet. Hopefully, if I get everything put together the way I want, it'll be worth the wait. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty confident that we're going to be able to get it all rolling. Common Conscious, man. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you for fucking with us, man. As always, it's your boy Dre Day, J Raider.
Yes, sir. Thanks for joining us, Common Conscience. You can find us here pretty soon again with the following episodes. Subscribe, like, notification bell, J Raider TV, Dre Day. We out of here. Bye.